In North Korea, a veil of secrecy shrouds a penal system notoriously known for its extreme severity and brutality, ranging from public executions to torture. Here are 10 of the most alarming punishments reported in North Korea. Number 10. Public executions. Public executions in North Korea have gained notoriety for their gruesome and horrifying characteristics. Although these reports mainly come from defectors and are difficult to verify independently, they consistently paint a deeply disturbing picture. These executions serve a dual purpose in the North Korean regime. They are the most severe form of punishment for the accused and a terrifying public spectacle deliberately created to instill fear and maintain strict social control. What sets North Korean executions apart is the wide range of crimes that can lead to this extreme punishment. These crimes can vary significantly, from acts that most nations would consider serious offenses, such as murder or espionage, to actions that democracies might consider minor or even lawful, such as consuming foreign media or attempting to defect. The arbitrary nature of the crimes leading to such severe penalties highlights the extreme measures the regime is willing to take to assert its dominance. The manner in which public executions are typically carried out further underscores the regime's brutal control. These executions often lack any semblance of a fair trial. In many cases, the accused are denied legal defense and the sentences appear predetermined. The executions themselves frequently take place before large crowds, sometimes including family members of the accused and even children. Attendance is often coerced, and failing to show sufficient enthusiasm or attendance can result in the threat of punishment. The choice of locations for these public executions is also significant. They are deliberately chosen to be symbolic and often take place in markets, school grounds, or near riverbanks to maximize visibility and impact. The regime's intention is to ingrain the horror in the minds of as many people as possible, creating a collective memory that serves as a powerful deterrent against potential future crimes. Despite blatant violations of international human rights laws, which unequivocally denounce extrajudicial executions, public executions without fair trials persist in North Korea. However, the reclusive and isolated nature of the North Korean regime presents significant challenges to international organizations aiming to take effective action against these reported abuses. In summary, public executions in North Korea epitomize a horrific means of control, akin to a macabre theater where the cost of any perceived disloyalty is imposed in the most extreme and horrifying manner conceivable. The primary objective is to keep the population in a perpetual state of fear, wielding the specter of this ultimate punishment as a harrowing cautionary tale for all to witness. These acts represent a chilling facet of the North Korean regime's oppressive tactics, leaving a lasting impact on the collective psyche of its citizens. Number 9. Collective punishment and guilt by association. In North Korea, the principle of collective punishment is a draconian practice that extends beyond the conventional penal system. When an individual is accused of a crime or disloyalty, their punishment is not limited to their own actions. Instead, it encompasses their entire family and sometimes even distant relatives. This approach reflects the regime's relentless determination to crush any form of dissent and exert total control over its population. The underlying logic of this system is to instill widespread fear that transcends individual behavior. The regime wants its citizens to understand that their actions can have severe consequences not only for themselves but also for their loved ones. This understanding profoundly discourages individuals from speaking out against the government or challenging it in any way. This fear permeates society, affecting social circles and friendships, and isolating potential dissidents. It fosters an environment where self-censorship becomes the norm, as people are afraid to express their opinions or grievances. The families of the accused often suffer the harshest consequences, facing punitive measures such as forced relocation to prison camps or remote, impoverished areas. In these places, they endure grueling labor, severe restrictions on their freedom, and a life marked by social stigma. In the most extreme cases, there have been reports of family members being executed, although verifying these claims independently is extremely difficult given the secrecy of the North Korean regime. This system is designed not only to punish but also to permanently mark families as untrustworthy. It has a lasting impact that affects multiple generations. Children born into these families face a bleak future, often marginalized from society and with severely limited educational and employment opportunities. This cycle of punishment establishes a powerful deterrent, reinforcing the regime's control over its citizens across generations. It is worth noting that the practice of collective punishment is widely condemned by international human rights laws, including the Geneva Conventions, which explicitly prohibit punishing individuals for actions they did not personally commit. Despite international condemnation, North Korea continues to employ this practice, seemingly shielded by its isolation and the limited capacity for international intervention. In essence, collective punishment and guilt by association in North Korea serve to exacerbate the already severe system of control in place. By holding families and communities collectively responsible for the actions of individuals, the regime instills a widespread fear that extends beyond the prison walls and labor camps, consolidating its grip on every facet of life in North Korea. This is a chilling and disturbing aspect of the regime that continues to attract international concern and scrutiny. Number 8. Forced labor *. The issue of forced labor in North Korea is widespread and brutally harsh, with significant repercussions on the lives of many individuals. Numerous credible reports have shed light on the harsh reality faced by tens of thousands of North Koreans, both political prisoners and ordinary citizens, trapped in this oppressive system. They are forced to work in various environments, including not only the infamous labor camps such as Kachin but also state-run farms and factories. For the North Korean regime, this system serves a dual purpose. It provides essentially free labor and simultaneously acts as a powerful tool for exercising social and political control. The conditions in these notorious labor camps are deplorable. Detainees are compelled to undertake exhausting labor for long hours in harsh and often dangerous environments, such as mines, logging camps, and agricultural fields. The physical demands of this work are exacerbated by minimal safety precautions, leading to alarmingly high rates of work-related injuries and deaths. To make matters worse, malnutrition is rampant, and access to adequate medical care is extremely scarce, making survival a daily struggle for many detainees. These labor camps also function as sites of ideological re-education, where prisoners are subjected to intense indoctrination sessions emphasizing unwavering loyalty to the regime while ruthlessly punishing any form of dissent. In addition to the physical hardships, psychological torment is a constant companion in the lives of detainees. They live under the ever-watchful eye of surveillance and the perpetual fear of further punishment. However, forced labor is not confined to the walls of prison camps. Even ordinary North Korean citizens can be conscripted to perform various forms of mandatory labor. For instance, during the agricultural season, citizens are often coerced into volunteering for agricultural projects. Similarly, urban residents can be mobilized for construction projects or other manual tasks. As part of their socialist obligations, failure to fulfill these duties can result in punishments ranging from fines to public humiliation or even imprisonment. Forced labor in North Korea serves multiple functions for the regime. It acts as a tool of punishment, inflicting severe physical and psychological suffering on those subjected to it. Additionally, it serves as a means of ideological indoctrination, reinforcing loyalty to the regime and suppressing dissent. Moreover, it represents a valuable economic resource, as the regime benefits from the labor of its citizens without providing any remuneration. The system is intentionally designed to dehumanize and break the spirit of those subjected to it, thus stifling any form of dissent and perpetuating the regime's iron-fisted control over power. The harrowing stories and well-documented reports emerging from North Korea about forced labor paint a grim picture of a system that systematically disregards basic human dignity and rights in its relentless pursuit of absolute control. This issue underscores the urgent need for international attention and concerted action to address these severe human rights violations that continue to afflict countless individuals in North Korea. If you're enjoying these intriguing facts, subscribe now so you don't miss any new videos. Number 7. Starvation as a form of punishment. Starvation, whether intentionally inflicted or resulting from systemic failures, emerges as another profoundly disturbing form of punishment highlighted in the context of North Korea. Although food shortages affect much of the North Korean population due to economic sanctions, mismanagement, and environmental issues, within the confines of prisons, labor camps, and detention centers, it takes on a deliberate and sinister character. In these environments, food deprivation is used as a calculated method to systematically weaken prisoners both physically and psychologically. Reports from defectors and human rights organizations have shed revealing light on the extreme malnutrition prevalent in North Korean prison camps and detention centers. When meals are provided, they are often so scant that they barely sustain life. Descriptions of a meal might encompass a mere handful of cornmeal or a watery soup with minimal nutritional value. This intentional underfeeding exacerbates the physical strain imposed by forced labor, creating a cruel cycle of deteriorating health, diminished work capacity, and consequently even harsher punishments. This brutal tactic has multiple objectives. Firstly, it weakens the individual to the point where resistance, whether physical or psychological, becomes nearly impossible. Secondly, the act of depriving food serves to dehumanize detainees, reducing them to a state where the primal struggle for survival overshadows any other concerns, including the ability to dissent or plan an escape. Beyond the prison walls, the specter of starvation is wielded as a tool of obedience and control. Citizens often face food deprivation as punishment for failing to meet state-imposed work quotas or engaging in activities deemed illegal by the government, such as participating in the black market trade. Even in these contexts, food scarcity transforms into a state tool, with the government controlling granaries that can be opened or closed to reward loyalty or punish disobedience. The deliberate use of starvation as a form of punishment flagrantly violates numerous international human rights standards, notably the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, which explicitly recognizes the right to adequate food. Despite the resounding international condemnation of this cruel practice, it has not abated and stands as a stark testament to the extreme measures the North Korean regime is willing to employ to maintain its grip on power. This issue underscores the urgent need for the international community to address the grave human rights abuses occurring in North Korea and advocate for the well-being of its citizens. Number 6. Harsh punishments. The punitive system of North Korea, as described by defectors and human rights organizations, is an extraordinarily harsh mechanism deliberately designed to suppress any form of dissent and maintain unyielding control over the population. These punishments are not limited to actions that would be considered serious offenses in other parts of the world, but also extend to specific offenses against the regime's strict regulations on information, mobility, and freedom of expression. Among the most draconian forms of punishment reported in North Korea are public executions, which serve as gruesome displays of state power. These executions, typically carried out by firing squads, are conducted in public places to instill fear in the local populace. The reasons for these executions can range from charges of treason and espionage to lesser offenses such as smuggling or consuming foreign media. Public executions serve as a stark reminder to the population of the potential consequences of defying the regime. Another grim facet of punishment is long-term imprisonment in labor camps, often referred to as kwanliso. Conditions in these camps are deplorable, with inmates subjected to forced labor in dangerous environments. Malnutrition, lack of medical care, and physical abuse are rampant, and many prisoners do not survive their sentences, succumbing to the harsh conditions or facing execution. These camps function not only as a means of punishment but also as a formidable deterrent. The fear of being sent to a labor camp is used as a method of social control. Corporal punishment represents another method employed by the authorities, with techniques ranging from severe beatings to water torture and stress positions designed to inflict both physical and psychological harm. In some cases, family members of the accused may also suffer collective punishment, where relatives, including children, can be sent to labor camps based on the principle of guilt by association. Additionally, repatriation to North Korea often results in severe punishments for defectors. Those who attempt to flee the country or are forcibly returned after escaping face interrogations, torture, and often prolonged imprisonment. This serves both as a punishment for the individual and as a deterrent for others contemplating escape. In summary, the North Korean regime employs these severe punishments as instruments to maintain its totalitarian rule. The primary objective is to cultivate an atmosphere of fear that deters any inclination toward dissent or deviation from state-sanctioned norms. Although these accounts largely rely on testimonies that are difficult to independently verify, the sheer quantity and uniformity of such reports paint a deeply concerning picture of the state of human rights in North Korea. If this video is making you more curious about the world, give it a like or a thumbs up. Let's continue. Number 5. Denial of medical care as punishment * in North Korea. The absolute lack of access to adequate medical care stands out as a deeply concerning form of punishment, often intertwined with other severe abuses such as forced labor and torture. In the country's prisons, labor camps, and detention centers, medical care is scandalously insufficient and frequently denied, which constitutes an additional method of exacerbating the suffering of detainees. Reports from defectors and findings by human rights organizations shed light on a calamitous situation. Prisoners suffering from work-related injuries, malnutrition, or contracted diseases have little to no access to essential medical services or medications. Even in cases of severe illness or injury, prisoners are often forced to continue performing arduous labor, further worsening their condition and accelerating the deterioration of their health. The deliberate denial of medical treatment serves multiple sinister purposes within the punitive regime. Firstly, it functions as a form of psychological torture. The awareness that illnesses or injuries will not be treated adds an additional layer of terror to an already nightmarish experience. Secondly, the absence of medical care can act as a de facto death sentence, a method of eliminating prisoners without the overt act of execution from the regime's perspective. Number 4. Surveillance and psychological control * in North Korea. The punitive machinery goes far beyond mere physical suffering. It encompasses an intricate system of surveillance and psychological manipulation that exerts profound control over the population. Beyond conventional punitive methods, this extensive surveillance apparatus serves two main functions: as a preventive measure and as a psychological tool that fosters self-censorship, distrust among citizens, and cultivates a climate of widespread fear. Surveillance in North Korea leaves no aspect of life untouched, from public spaces to the privacy of the home. The regime employs various tactics, from strategically placed human informants in communities to advanced technological methods. Neighborhoods are meticulously organized into units responsible for monitoring the behavior of their members, creating an environment in which individuals are constantly scrutinized by their peers. Even minor infractions can quickly be reported to the authorities, leading to punishments ranging from public humiliation to imprisonment. The psychological impact of this pervasive surveillance is profound. People live in a constant state of fear, always aware of the possibility of being watched. This heightened surveillance makes individuals extremely cautious about what they say, whom they associate with, and even their most intimate thoughts. This culture of surveillance penetrates family and friendship relationships, sowing distrust in the very social bonds that often provide emotional and psychological support. Additionally, the regime employs more direct forms of psychological control. Public criticism sessions, often referred to as self-criticism sessions, are commonplace. In these sessions, individuals are coerced into confessing their perceived flaws and criticizing others. These sessions serve as both a means to induce fear and conformity, acting as a tactic of public humiliation and as a constant reminder of the regime's omnipresence in all aspects of daily life. Another facet of psychological control is the relentless propaganda machinery that glorifies the regime while vilifying external enemies. This creates a distorted reality in which the state is portrayed as the ultimate protector, psychologically inhibiting people from questioning the status quo or rebelling against it. This Orwellian system flagrantly violates numerous international human rights principles, such as the right to privacy and freedom of thought, yet it remains one of the most effective tools in the North Korean regime's arsenal for maintaining control over its citizenry. This underscores the fact that punishment in North Korea does not consist solely of physical suffering but also focuses equally on the manipulation of its people's minds, ensuring their conformity through an omnipresent culture of fear and surveillance. Number 3. Torture. Torture is another deeply unsettling method of punishment that has been systematically documented in North Korea. Shedding light on the harrowing experiences of its citizens and obtaining precise details about specific torture techniques and their prevalence is challenging due to the secretive nature of the country. However, accounts from defectors and findings from human rights organizations offer an enlightening perspective. Torture serves multiple purposes in North Korea, as it not only acts as a means of punishment but also as a method of interrogation and a tool for suppressing political dissent. Physical torture encompasses a range of methods explicitly designed to inflict extreme pain and physical harm. Beatings are alarmingly common and are often administered using various instruments such as wooden sticks, metal rods, and electric batons. Other methods include water torture and stress positions that force individuals to maintain unbearable postures for extended periods. However, torture transcends mere physical suffering. Ruthlessly employed psychological methods are used to break the mental state of the victims. Sleep deprivation, forced participation in public humiliation sessions, and threats to harm loved ones are some of the psychological techniques that have been utilized. In many cases, the objective is not only to extract information but also to instill a level of fear so profound that the victim becomes less likely to challenge or question the regime in the future. Compounding the horror is the absence of procedural safeguards. Many of those subjected to torture have not been formally charged or granted a fair trial. Confessions obtained through torture are frequently used as evidence in sham trials, further entwining the practice within the judicial process. The lack of legal representation or any form of external oversight turns interrogation chambers into lawless spaces where almost anything can occur without repercussions for the perpetrators. These actions flagrantly violate international human rights statutes, including the Convention Against Torture, of which North Korea is a party. However, the lack of transparency and the country's isolation make it exceptionally challenging for the international community to intervene or hold the regime accountable in this particular context. Torture, beyond being a mere punitive measure, becomes an instrument for maintaining an atmosphere of fear and subservience that the regime deems essential for its own survival. The stories of torture survivors from North Korea underscore the urgent need for international awareness and action to address these serious human rights violations. Number 2. Sources of information frequently cited by defectors, NGOs, and international organizations. Various sources have consistently brought to light the widespread control and severe punitive measures employed by the North Korean regime. These sources primarily include defectors who have managed to escape from the regime, non-governmental organizations, NGOs, specializing in human rights, and international organizations such as the United Nations. Although each of these sources offers a unique perspective, they often converge on the fundamental themes of extensive control and severe punitive measures imposed by the North Korean regime. Accounts from defectors are especially compelling as they provide first-hand experiences of life within North Korea. Individuals who have escaped the regime describe a wide range of punitive measures, from well-known practices like forced labor camps and public executions to more subtle forms of psychological manipulation and indoctrination. Some defectors have even recounted witnessing the forced labor or sentencing of family members as part of collective punishments. While defectors' accounts may be difficult to independently verify due to the closed nature of North Korea, the coherence of their stories collectively paints a compelling picture of widespread abuses. NGOs, including prominent international human rights organizations like Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International, have played a crucial role in gathering evidence and publishing reports on human rights abuses in North Korea. These organizations interview defectors, collect satellite images of alleged prison camps, and gather information from other open sources to advocate for international action. Although NGOs lack the capacity to operate within North Korea, their rigorous research methods and global reputation lend credibility to their findings, making them a vital source of information. International organizations such as the United Nations also play a significant role in documenting human rights abuses in North Korea. For example, the United Nations Commission of Inquiry on Human Rights in North Korea published a comprehensive report in 2014 detailing various forms of abuses, including those that may constitute crimes against humanity. These reports often serve as the basis for sanctions and other diplomatic actions against the North Korean regime. However, international organizations face the challenge of limited access to the country, which restricts their ability to conduct on-the-ground investigations. Despite these obstacles, the consistency of accounts from various sources raises serious concerns. The recurring nature and similarity of these reports suggest systemic issues rather than isolated incidents, underscoring the need for international scrutiny and action. Whether it's a defector sharing their personal experiences or an NGO presenting well-documented evidence, each account adds to the distressing picture of human rights abuses and severe punishments prevailing in North Korea. Number 1. Silence Stories. Documentation of human rights violations in North Korea is a distressing narrative that has emerged from various sources, shedding light on the deeply authoritarian nature of the regime under the leadership of Kim Jong-un. These narratives collectively reveal a regime that employs strict measures to enforce its laws and maintain its ideological orthodoxy, creating an atmosphere of fear and repression. One of the most damning pieces of evidence of human rights violations in North Korea is a comprehensive report published by a United Nations Commission of Inquiry in 2014. This historic report meticulously details a wide range of systematic and atrocious human rights violations, some of which amount to crimes against humanity. Among the grave documented practices are extrajudicial executions. The report also highlights the appalling conditions prevailing in political prison camps, where detainees are subjected to forced labor, inadequate access to food, and medical neglect. Public executions, often carried out without due process guarantees, are chilling spectacles intended to instill fear and obedience. Even seemingly innocuous acts such as watching foreign media or engaging in unauthorized communication with strangers can carry severe consequences, including death sentences. In the most heartbreaking cases, women suffer sexual violence and exploitation, including forced abortions and infanticide, while children are subjected to forced labor and ideological indoctrination in schools, conditioned for a lifetime of unconditional loyalty to the regime. The secrecy of the North Korean regime greatly hampers independent verification of information. However, the consistency of these accounts from various sources such as defectors, NGOs, UN agencies, and independent human rights researchers paints a bleak picture of the human rights situation in the country. Addressing these issues on the international stage is complex and delicate, especially with North Korea's nuclear ambitions looming in the background. Balancing efforts to address human rights abuses while navigating the intricate diplomatic landscape surrounding the North Korean nuclear program poses a multifaceted challenge for the international community. This underscores the urgent need for careful diplomacy and coordinated international efforts to address both the humanitarian crisis and security issues in the region. See you in the next video.